Hello everybody and welcome to the Rocket Punch Dragon Ball Z Kakarot review. My name is Will and these are my thoughts. Strap in and let's get going. Every few years we have another Dragon Ball game marketed to all of us. Sometimes we're given a masterpiece like Dragon Ball FighterZ, and sometimes we stumble into a dumpster fire like Dragon Ball Z Battle of Z. But where does Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, the latest game in the DBZ universe, stack up? Well, of course, you could gather the Dragon Balls and summon Shenron, or you can keep reading and find out. First, let's take a look at some of the systems of the game. The game has several systems in place that seem to make no difference in the experience as you go through the story, as well as adding complexity we don't truly need. An example is the community board. The community boards are supposed to be a system that allows you to take icons for each character and use them to work towards certain abilities or bonuses while you play the game. So far, I have made it through the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z, and I haven't seen any noticeable benefit from using Chi-Chi's cooking group or Mr. Popo's guide board. The issue I run into with the cooking board is primarily the benefit versus time put into it. You will be able to earn more recipes and go further with minor status effects, but overall I chose to spend my time with either the experience boosting board under King Kai or the Z board with Goku, as they both provide a bonus to combat or strengthening my characters overall. I honestly need more time to discern any benefit from the God board Mr. Popo runs. Leveling up the attacks through the skill board does feel like a useful addition that's not emphasized enough other than fighting ghost versions of your team to increase the skill. The Z orbs you gather that are floating throughout the open world do seem to just be there to help you navigate around and fill the time, as defeating story-based encounters reward you enough Z orbs to keep the attacks and skills leveling up without really grinding away for certain orbs. Speaking of Z-Orbs, let's discuss the open world aspects of the game. The world is broken up into 13 large maps placed all over the Earth. Each area can either feel open and empty, or busy and compact. The desert Piccolo trains Gohan in is filled with some dinosaurs and even some people, but it also feels empty and gives off the feeling of just being a sandbox for you to play in. Whereas West City feels busy and congested at times with NPCs everywhere, and a small map to contain it all in. It honestly feels like the Earth of Dragon Ball, but it also feels empty, or like it's only there to facilitate movement between fights. Even though I am saying the open world can feel like it's there to fill in the time between combat, it can be a blast to just run around or flying through it all. This does look and feel just like the world of Dragon Ball from the anime. I love the idea of flying up to access the map to travel to another area. While exploring the world, there are dinosaurs that can be defeated with Ki Blast, which can give you higher quality meats for the fireside cooking. Speaking of cooking, the game offers a cooking system that can be done in the open world next to campfires that are periodically placed around the map. The dinosaurs and other creatures that spawn around the world can be hunted for the meat. The trees can have the fruit picked from them, and all of these can be used as ingredients. Depending on the recipes and ingredients, you will get bonuses to your stats from the meals cooked, as well as your health and ki bars will be restored to maximum capacity. When you're cooking, you'll choose a recipe based on the ingredients available, and then a jingle will play and you'll see a basic animation of the character you're playing as eating. As fun as flying through the open world can be, there are side missions scattered throughout it. They simply end up being a process of retrieving an item, return said item, and then fight a generic villain to complete the mission. There's a large amount of wasted potential with this part of the game. It would not have overshadowed the main storyline if they decided to use moments from the movies of the anime series as side missions, instead of using the Dragon Ball Z anime movies as side story missions or experiences. They use mindlessly repetitive missions to build in more movement on the map, which is fun, but finding a random item and then fighting a bad guy to defend the quest giver is reused way too often. As with most games, there are moments that push the systems or hardware that may cause glitches or crashes. In this case, I've seen it appear as small stutters when loading into a new in-engine cinematic, or in a more specific incident, we see the character Dende superimposed on the screen after Frieza kills him in the prior cinematic. Thankfully, when you're in combat, the game doesn't show any of these issues. One aspect of the game that I think is worth mentioning as well, especially to other die-hard fans of the Dragon Ball series, are some of the changes made to the story that are within this game. One such moment is when Gohan is running away from the desert area Piccolo is training him in. In the anime, he comes across an orphanage that has children fighting against the authorities for their right to choose how they live. Gohan joins with them until he realizes the authorities wanted what's best for those children, even though they didn't realize it. In the game story, we run into Poir feeling down about the fight, thinking that everyone will fall against the Saiyans on their way to Earth. They use these moments to galvanize Gohan, and personally, I feel more attachment to the original character growth moments over the ones used here. It tends to pull me from the experience in this game. The problem is that little moments like this can cause a divide in the fan base on the little things and experiences in the story overall. This is a big thing, since every massive moment in the series is given the weight it has from our emotional investment we make in these characters. This helps these fights mean more than just a regular fight against bad guys. Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time has the meaning it does because it is the culmination of the story beats leading up to the big confrontation. Vegeta reveals the thoughts of Goku being a Super Saiyan after he defeated Recoome in a single blow, while the rest of the protagonists were almost killed by the same dude. The other example would be when Gohan finally lets loose against Cell and transforms into the Ascended Super Saiyan and unleashes his hidden potential that was hinted back at the first episode in the anime. These moments have the meaning they do because of the journey we went on with these characters to get there. Like most things made by humans, there are some issues, but the big thing that does stand out to me is the soundtrack. I grew up with the Bruce Faulconer score for Dragon Ball Z, and I love it. However, the music used in this game was definitely inspired by the Shinsuke Kikuchi score. Bruce Faulconer is an American musician, composer, and record producer. He has produced the original Funimation soundtrack for Dragon Ball Z, but he's also written music for orchestras, chamber ensembles, instrumental, and choral music groups. Shinsuke Kikuchi is a Japanese composer who has worked on several shows over the years besides Dragon Ball, one of them being Tenchi in Tokyo. He has worked on children's TV shows as well as action films since the 1960s to now. I've gone back and watched several scenes over the years from American and Japanese releases, and the Kikuchi score adds a feeling of magnificence. While I prefer Faulconer's score, the feelings I get while playing through the story with this version of the soundtrack have given me a new appreciation for the moments I may have passed over in the story, looking at the action instead. Some of the moments where I feel Mr. Kikuchi did a better job would be the moment where Piccolo sacrifices himself to save Gohan from a blast Nappa fired at him. The ambiance conveyed by the music is somber and subdued, where the Faulconer soundtrack would go from a heavy rock and roll vibe to borderline horror movie feeling. However, where I feel Faulconer did a better job are points where we have an epic attack being launched, like when Vegeta fired his final flash at Cell. These are very different moments and each soundtrack has its merits. Really, I wish the soundtrack leaned into both types of music, but the Kikuchi-inspired way was the best decision for the global markets. As I finish gathering my thoughts about this game, I truly do feel this game has problems, but it has so many special moments and additions to the property I appreciate and have followed since I was a child. There is something special here. It may be a culmination of the combat system and proper timing in the story beats laid out by Toriyama all those years ago. It may just be the rose-colored glasses coming out, but the performances from both the Japanese and American voice actors stand out from their original recordings. It does have some issues, and I have to nitpick to find faults, more than just what's seen at first blush. Overall, through the charm of the story, the fluidity of the combat, and the music that makes this game feel like a proper Dragon Ball Z experience, which is something we've been lacking for quite some time.